Commissioner Snyder?
Here.
Commissioner Warren?
Here.
Commissioner Zender?
Here.
Commissioner Rogers?
Here.
Commissioner Miller?
Here.
Chairman Roy?
Here. We always start our meeting with a prayer, the pledge of allegiance.
Heavenly Father, thank you for gathering us together here this morning as a free people to discuss the business of Lapeer County. As we do, we are mindful of the great blessing and the great responsibility that comes with this freedom and all that sacrifice before us to give us this freedom. Please help us never take it for granted. Lord, please watch over all of the residents in our county, many of them having a variety of different needs. And please help us to support them in any way that we can. Lord, we ask for a blessing upon all of our residents and all of our staff, especially all those that put themselves in harm's way for us each day. For all of our troops, Lord, especially those that are away from their families in foreign lands fighting for freedom, please bring them home safely soon, victorious to us. Lord, as we prepare to conduct the business of the county this morning, please give us the wisdom to make the best decisions we can for our constituents. We ask all this in your holy name.
Amen. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Before the board, you'll see today's agenda. Are there any additions, Quinn?
No, sir.
I need a motion. All in favor, someone saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, same sign, motion carries. Consideration of draft minutes from the July 8th, 2021 Committee of the Whole meeting.
I'll move.
Support. Any discussion on those minutes? All in favor of those minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oh, same sign, motion carries. Review of overnight travel requests, grant applications, and budget amendments being distributed around the dais this morning. If you have any questions about it, please bring it before the board this morning. And bring us down department head updates. Would any department head or public official like to speak to the board this morning? Over, John.
Good morning, Commissioners. I just want to bring the new managers in, introduce them to the Commissioners. This is Rich, he's our new park manager.
Mitch, how are you?
And this is Ben, our new maintenance manager for building and grounds. I just want to bring them in, introduce them to the Commissioners, so you guys have a familiar face.
Okay. Welcome, you guys.
Thank you.
Yes.
We need you.
Good luck. God bless.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thanks, John.
Thanks, John.
Good morning, good morning.
Sheriff?
For the stats first, for the last week, lodged in the jail 22. Lapeer City 1, Sheriff's Office 14, State Police 5, Dryden Township 1, Lapeer Township 1. Out of those 22, 14 felony counts, 11 misdemeanor. Out of them, 15 of them were male, 7 female. Traffic stops 119, car crashes 15, personal injury 3, fatality 1, medical treatment or intervention. There's one of those people. This can't be right. This detoxing from drugs or alcohol 21. I hope that's not right. Mental health or intervention 1. Couple things. Busy week, obviously, in the county. Guys and girls from in all departments have really been spread thin this week. Obviously, the horrible situation with the gentleman in Dryden. I'd say Dryden's the lead on that, and then we're support for it. So, but a horrible situation. One of the things, we've obviously had the dive team, we've got all our search and rescue people. Another thing I say kind of all the time to you guys is how much I love this county. To see the people that are down there and driving, how many people are out there. I mean, hundreds. We're not talking a couple, we're talking hundreds of people. I was there that first night till about 2 in the morning. And at 2 in the morning, it was pretty common down Casey and that area. I mean, there's four-wheelers and side-by-sides and people walking. And just to see the community and what Lapeer County does, it's just so refreshing. Horrible situation with it. You think all the other departments, I mean, we've had search and rescue, we have Alpena search and rescue that's actually on scene right now helping with ours. But the men and women that have been out there, the hours of things, I mean, it was very common. We had the dive team out there, we did like 5 lakes. And these guys and girls were dead. I mean, just trying to go through it, they were exhausted. And you didn't go 5 minutes without somebody pulling up and bringing water or things like that to it. And that's just neighbors, community people that come in. There's people from the northern part of our county that just came down their trailer side by side down to help. So horrible situation. But on the same side, I just, even talking to the family, how impressed they were that all these people came there. So that's why, again, why I say how much I love Lapeer County. Secondly, we had the fatal. Obviously, that's Lapeer Township. Original, were the support on that. Another horrible situation. Chief Stokes and I were the first car on that morning. It was at like 7:30. We were outside of Dinley City. But for that gentleman, I guess the only part I'd say with that, I won't get into details, obviously, because of the case, but you know, the man that's taking his dogs out to the mailbox with a 6-year-old grandson in the house when this happens, and to just leave the scene and drive away. I don't know as a human being how you do that. I just don't. Super nice family, and the family's destroyed all in 4 seconds. So another tribute to, obviously we do all the accident reconstruction on it, but all the departments, again, you had every department there, and then of course during that's going on the morning of the Dryden deal. And then let's throw another large storm that comes through here when you have every fire department helping and searching and driving. So for everybody, every first responder, every neighbor, every Lapeer County resident, when I laid my head on my pillow, I'm so glad and so blessed that we live here. So that's all I have unless you have any questions. Oh, one last thing, I'm sorry. I talked to you I think it was last week. Yesterday morning, I did do the health department review. Jeremy and Andy and I went in and talked to, we had every employee from the health department in on that. Really good conversation. I think it was more of obviously it was a debrief from the situation that had happened. But I basically said, listen, we're here, let's talk. I know you're upset about some things. I know there's safety issues or things that you want, and it was a really good open conversation. I had a lot of people come up after this, so thanks for allowing them to have, that voice, and they had a lot of great ideas. So I think there's some things we're talking. Quentin and I talked before. John Bussel's been involved heavily with this. I think we do need to look at things. I think the time is now, especially with some of the money coming from COVID and things like that, that we can make it safer. So I think we'll move quickly on it. Some of the money, from my understanding, has expiration coming up, and we have additional monies now that are newer. But so we're going to move fairly quickly on that. My recommendation, or what I'd like to look at, and it's not something we need to continue to answer from you guys today, but I think we need to have some architects. I know you're working with CMH and some of the ones you've had in there to come in and kind of give us an idea of some of the things we can adapt to make it safer, so there's not people just randomly walking through that building. The problem is that even when I told everybody yesterday, this isn't anybody's fault. It's a building that was moved into that wasn't made for the purpose of what it's being used for. That happens all the time. So it's not anybody's fault. We just now have to fix it to try to make it safer. So for future stuff, there will be some other conversations and ideas. We'll put some recommendations together as to how we think we can kind of bless you to fix those things. So I'll be bringing that stuff to you back here in the near future. So, good. Thank you for your time.
Are there any other elected officials or department heads that'd like to give us an update this morning? It's Kathy back there. She wants to say anything.
Kathy, would you like to talk?
I'm actually going to move to where I can sit here better, but unless you have questions, I don't have an update for you.
Okay. Are there any other updates from elected officials, department heads this morning? Here in seeing no one, we'll close elected official department head updates. That brings us down to the first public time. Anybody like to address the board during the first public time this morning? Hearing seeing no one, I'll close the first.
I'd like to, I was waiting, I guess it was not outstanding.
Is this about,
The election?
no, we got, that's an agenda item coming up. You want to wait till then?
Sure,
Okay. That's fine.
so if that's gonna be kind of like a public time for us.
It's gonna be like 3 minutes of
Okay,
case go ahead.
awesome, thank you.
I would like to just say, I hope this community continues and always supports our law enforcement. They mean so much. It's so important, so please, never stop.
Thank you.
Am I supposed to turn this in to you?
Anybody else like to address this board during the first public time? Moving on, I'll close the first public time, bring us down to the Sheriff's Department request to replace accident reconstruction equipment and software to be paid from the drug forfeiture fund. Sheriff?
So I apologize, I was starting to read this. So as you know that, we're kind of a unique situation here in the county, compared to a lot of the other counties. We do any fatal that happens in the county, we are the ones that handle it. One of the things that we looked at when I first came in was, as you guys all know, Jason Parks is the one that does them all. I don't know how Jason finds time to do the things that he does. The poor guy moves around vacations, he's come back from vacations, I mean, because he truly is the only one that does fables in the entire county. We are changing that right now. Actually, have one that's halfway through the school right now and works with him kind of an apprentice side, and we're bringing a third on. Because it truly is unfair to Jason, that's what he does. But it doesn't matter what department, obviously, Lapeer Township, fatal that we just talked about, any department that has it, they'll take the original, we come out and do full reconstruction on it. You see in there the paperwork that we have. We've been looking at this for about 1.5 years now, talking to Lieutenant Parks, obviously with any of the forfeiture stuff, and finding a way that we could update it. The equipment we have right now is archaic. It's just the way it goes. It's not cheap. It's not cheap equipment. One of the things that we really ran into is some of the equipment we have, just for an education piece, especially now with all our newer vehicles, really from the last, and I'm not an expert in that, but for the last 10 years or so, obviously it's a major computer going down the road. We're able to look through the black box and through the information on it. We're basically now, especially on the newer cars, we're able to look and see exactly what speeds are going, if your brakes were applied, if your windshield wipers were on, if your radio was on. All very important information when it comes to any kind of criminal event. The equipment that we have now, we can't do a vehicle over 2018. We can't have that. The other part is, the nice part about this equipment is because of the technology moving so quickly, these aren't just used for accidents. We use these for major scenes. Obviously, the homicide that we had in Dryden 1.5 years ago, 2 years ago, being a larger scene, and with shell casings and all that, we're able to use that for that. You take the time, obviously the accident that we just had with the pursuit on the armed robbery there at Baldwin in 24, as bad of a scene as that was, that intersection probably with our equipment or with prior equipment would have been shut down for a good day plus, and a major intersection in the city. So the nice part about these equipment things is it moves quickly. It gets our traffic back up. It gets things moving with it. Obviously, you see the price on it. This would all be paid for in forfeiture money. I sat down with Lieutenant Parks, obviously who runs the forfeiture side of it. So this will be for the total station and equipment that goes with it, all the software for the total station and the black box downloading to where we would be able to update vehicles. They usually say that that's about 10. Obviously, technology moves quickly, but then we do updates with this to be able to move newer cars as they go out with it. It's a really big piece of it. As I look at it, for for Lapeer County, I just pulled for the last 3 years. This year has been kind of different. We had, in 2018, we had 15 fatalities in our county. 2019, we had 9. 2020, we had 7. Already in 2021, we had another one since then. So we had 11. Injury accidents, critical injury accidents in 2018, 401. 2019, 413. In 2020, 325 of last year. So we do a lot, and they're going out nonstop with this equipment. The other hard part is that we've had days, whether on the same day or back-to-back days, we've had fatalities. There's a lot of investigation and a lot of backlog to try to figure that out. With this new equipment, everything will move quicker. We'll be able to put these things out faster, and we'll be able to do it at a higher quality than what we normally have. The one big question that I asked in there is, that figure, was the reoccurring cost side of it is. So the updates on these are usually about every couple of years, about $1,000 total, $1,000 to $1,200 for the updates on those, for the black box side and for the total station side. And I put that on the record so that you understand that would be paid for out of forfeiture money too. We're fine with that. So it would be strictly paid for out of forfeiture, but there'd be no cost to the county, including the reoccurring costs in a couple of years when we actually have it. Any question? Yes, sir.
So this equipment, I assume it all has its own like little cases that everything
Yeah.
goes in?
Yeah, there's the large, solid cases that Lieutenant Parks actually drives his vehicle, his work vehicle is a minivan, because there's so much equipment with it. But it all is there, and we have shelving and stuff in there so that it's bolted down in his vehicle, because of the obviously expensive cost of it.
So when you say that, I guess I'm just assuming, does this equipment get unloaded within the building? After it's used, and then every time he's got to load it up and put it in his
It's a lot, yeah. It's almost like going on vacation every time he's called out. But yes, the time of year is different. Obviously in the winter, we're a little bit different with it. The hard part is Jason takes this with him to his house. If Jason's on vacation, comes back to the office, because we do have some people that can put it together that then Jason can put it. Jason's the only expert in this entire county that testifies in circuit court. So Jason Parks gets called on the stand. There's not a lot of people that are considered experts in a field. And Jason's the only one in this county. There's not a lot in the state. But to answer your question, yes, it does get unloaded. Obviously, Jason brings it out and does that. The good part is because the computer system itself and the information that's downloaded on there, he's able to take that. It's almost like a laptop that comes out. It can come into the office to reprogram and redesign the exact accidents, the intersections, all the other stuff with it. And it depends on time of year, as to what it is. We have, but we are, a lot of times, yes, it is unloaded. We have a dolly system that it pulls out and goes into and comes into the office with it, so that if we got repairs or weather, sprinkling weather, things like that. But obviously you see the price of it, so we're pretty picky and careful about it.
Yeah, well, I guess that was kind of leading to my next question is, do we need to come up with a better system as far as storing that in the vehicle, and maybe the vehicle being inside, or,
I don't, to be honest, I don't think so. I think we're in pretty good shape, only because we know how vital and how expensive that piece of equipment, or all those pieces of equipment are. So we got a pretty good setup. Jason is up on his detective bureau car. He's up for another car soon, because he's got a ton of miles on that car, on that minivan. But then it would be our setup that we'd set it up and probably improve on it in the next vehicle that he has to have that. A lot of our guys just have the smaller detective bureau cars. Jason with all his equipment, so then we'll even make it better when we switch over to the new vehicle. But great question. Yes, sir.
So, because the price tag is big, just a couple finance questions.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again,
Yeah.
it's an appropriate request, and it's also an appropriate use of forfeiture funds based on the laws. So, first of all, do we know what the current unencumbered balance, Jackie, or
Around 50,000.
Forfeiture funds?
Yeah, in the,
Before we withdraw
Right.
this amount. Okay, that
Yes.
takes into account anything we've done with the prosecutor's
Yes.
office or federal.
yes, absolutely.
I make the motion to move.
Another question. And then, with the request for action, because there's not a draft motion, I'm trying to get a handle on. So there's 3 different prices that are attached that are different stages or different functions of the overall request. Each one of them gets added on. So each one of those different areas, there's only one quote presented. So are those, because the way the memo is written, it's a little bit confusing, that other departments were contacted that use this stuff, and quotes were obtained and they're attached. The quotes that are attached, it's just one quote from one company for one function, one quote
Right.
from one company for another function. So are any or all of those sole sources, or were there multiple quotes for each one of those stages?
Great
What
question.
we got was just the lowest quote or best quote.
So, and great question. The one part, I think, of a lot of things that we talk about here, one is obviously COVID, as in some of the businesses that are doing it. The truth of the matter is, there isn't many companies in the state of Michigan who do this anymore. The one that we're going off of was the state bid for Oakland County and for MSP.
That's what.
So it was an actual state bid.
Okay, so it is a state.
Yes, sir.
So we make that part of our motion then, because again,
Yep, no, you're 100% right. 100%
we
right.
want to make sure that we're doing the right thing. So if you're making that motion, the motion should at least state that for that total amount obtained from the state bid, and then the money coming out of forfeit funds.
Yep, 100%, I agree.
I'll add that to the motion.
I'll support that motion.
Thank you. I'm sorry.
Yeah, just quickly, how long will the equipment / software be current in your opinion? I mean, I see this last one lasts 13 years, which is pretty impressive for government,
Yeah,
especially with technology, how quickly it's expanded in 13 years. And then will updates be allowed to be covered by the forfeiture fund as well?
yes.
Okay.
So obviously equipment wise, and I couldn't agree more, actually, that's what I said when I saw the date of it, that it's not normal. But that the equipment I see probably lasts even at least that long or longer, which I'd be satisfied with. The software side of it, as technology evolves, we don't know an exact time on when it would be. They were saying in there that they believe probably within 2 to 3 years would be a major software update. That's the $1,200 figure I said. And I did confirm with Lieutenant Bartz, and obviously he put that on the record with the 2 so that it's for future use. But he's completely comfortable. He would set aside the money for the update. As we did that. This is probably one of the more vital pieces of equipment that we use. And I think it's important too, because it's not really just for the sheriff's office. This is for the entire county and every department in it. So, but yeah, that's a great question.
So we'll add that motion as far as that, to make this stuff.
Yep.
Okay, we have a motion. We
Chairman.
don't have the motion.
Chairman, could we have the exact verbiage for that motion, because there was a lot of discussion that wove in so that the minutes are correct and reflecting what the sheriff needs and all of the correct, say, for the funding.
Motion added was the state bid that we're using, not the state bid, the separation. The other part of the motion was added for the maintenance requirement that Ron was added also.
That would be paid out of forfeiture.
Is that the entire motion?
There's no words for a motion written. I can pull one out of the air.
And we can put it, and I apologize because I didn't write this.
Let's just move the issue to next week and give them a chance to actually, you guys will add that verbiage and just have a draft motion for next week when it's
There's-
forward.
We'll get an
There's no worry
RFA.
with it, so I'm
Okay.
fine with whatever makes it easier for you
So
guys.
that it's appropriate, so that it
Totally
follows
fine.
what you need.
Whatever works best for you guys.
So we're gonna call my motion to change it to moving this to the next.
Yeah, that's, like I said, it's not time sensitive, so no worries.
Sure.
We have
Thank you.
to do it next week anyway, so.
I was just gonna say, we'll complete an official RFA for this, which will have the emotion language built into the RFA. We'll get that.
That's what we're over.
That's perfect. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we do want to move this to next week.
Yeah, I made that motion. So
Made a motion, did you support it? Okay, we have a motion and support to move this to next week, we get a full explanation. All in favor, so say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Health Department request for annual approval of the Alcohol Information and Counseling Center, AICC policy procedure. Kathy, do you have somebody here that wants to speak to that? Huh?
Outside in the hallway.
He's right here.
There he is.
I knew he was here.
They took my seat.
It looked like this was in addition to the policy that we've already previously, this one dealing with if there was a breach. Is that what this, so all this language that's attached, this is all new? It's a subsection of our existing policy?
Correct. We didn't do any amendments this year or changes to our existing policy and procedures manual. This was a new one coming from the state. We already had a HIPAA policy about what we should be doing and how to protect information. This was in the event that a breach happens, the process and how we move forward with the state, and specifically Region 10 managing federal monies, how we go about doing that and how we go about notifying the individuals that their information was breached.
And I assume we didn't have to invent all this. Like, was this a boilerplate?
This was a copy and paste from our Region 10 providers that manage our medication.
I'll move it then.
Okay, we have a motion and support. All in favor of that motion, so say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion carries. Thank you.
Thank you.
Going on to election equipment review and discussion. We have a lot of people here that would like to speak this morning, so we're going to put some things in place. You are allowed to come up and you're allowed to speak for 3 minutes apiece. Just like in public time. Speak for 3 minutes, either way. The board will not interact in any way during this particular time to discuss this election equipment. And I hope we keep this to election equipment in Lapeer County. Not what's going on in the federal government, not what's going on in Wayne County or any place else. There's a discussion going on for this county. And everybody has their views and everybody wants to speak, but we cannot, I hope that people don't try to talk over somebody else. Let everybody speak one at a time, and do not try to speak over somebody when they make a statement. Please don't. Okay, saying that, who would like to address this issue first?
Mr. Chairman, can we have,
The presentation.
can we have the presentation first and then
A presentation.
Teresa, ask us to-
Teresa's gonna explain how this all works. So
Well, everybody's put it under the same rules. I know what happened last week, and we don't want that to happen again, where you're trying to speak, somebody else comes up and says, no, that's not the way it is. We don't want that to happen, Teresa.
Time keep me. If, I just wanted to share with your board.
Point of order,
Yes.
just before you get started. So Teresa asked last week.
I understand what you asked.
She asked last week to do a presentation, so we're just for our clarification. We're not holding her to a public time 3 minute because this is not public time. This is her agenda item like any other agenda item. She asked for a presentation. The public is here.
I understand that, Lenny, but I don't want people interrupting her either.
Oh, no, I'm good with all that stuff. I just want to make sure she's not suddenly put on the clock for 3 minutes. If she asked for an agenda, I just want to make sure she's going to
Okay, that's fine.
time.
Pleasure of the commission, just tell me. It's just that when I did stand up last week, in my desire to share with you all certain particulars about the equipment and election processes, it was going to be longer than 3 minutes, and I think that's why the chairman asked me to come back this week. And so I'm back. I'm happy to try to keep it pretty concise because it's a broad subject to share with you. Because, and honestly, you folks aren't the one that run the elections. You can't possibly know what we call the media, what we call the equipment, and how it all works from the countywide election management. So my hope is to give you that information because you do have, the folks that you represent that are coming to you with questions. We have numerous people that come here every week to speak to you and ask you to do certain things with regard to the election that may be out of your purview. So, with that said,
Hey,
what I-
Teresa, I actually have you speak up just a little bit louder.
Sure.
Okay, thanks.
Sure. I'll try that.
I know it's.
Without sounding angry, okay, because I'm not angry. As I said last week, I welcome questions because that's the way we can explain things, that's the way we can understand what questions might exist that I'm not even aware of. So questions are okay, and I welcome them. I want to point out before I forget, I have a stack of my business cards on the corner of this table. Please take one. If we're done talking today and you have additional questions, give me a call. Maybe we can sit down with an appointment. I'm happy to do that if you wish. So what I'm hearing from the outside world is distrust in our equipment. Yes, Lapeer County does have Dominion equipment. It's gotten a very bad name in the state and beyond. And I'm disappointed about that because it was approved at the federal level, rigorous testing, state level, before counties could even choose the type of equipment we would be using. So yes, Lapeer County has Dominion equipment. This is an example of the Dominion tabulator. This is an example of the ballot marking device. This is an ICX, that's its company name. This is an ICP, that's its name. So, and this is an over-the-counter printer. This is 1 unit for voting, just a ballot marking device. This is the key computer right here. This top piece is the tabulator, the key piece to counting our ballots. Any ballot that's created here will be fed through here. Any ballot you or I mark in our privacy booth will be fed through here. Because we need a total from the tabulator to know what our election results are. The only way this piece of equipment, this computer, can understand how to read a ballot is through special programming. And we call this media. Maybe it's a flash card, I don't know, different names, but. So the entire election is programmed on these cards. These are samples. These are not, we don't have an election on them. We guard any of these that have an election programmed on them. So the election is programmed on 2 of these, identical. These are identical, but realize each precinct is different because your commissioner districts are spread through different precincts. So these are programmed specific to the ballot in the precinct. These critical, this is where the election is. This piece of equipment understands and reads what it's telling. These are, after a very rigorous testing, called accuracy testing, these are placed in this piece of equipment and locked in. It's all documented, it's all done through the local election commission. At the local township level, the supervisor, the clerk, and the treasurer are the election commission. At the county level, the election commission is myself, the treasurer, and the probate judge. So it's all designed through the law, how all of this works. But back to the local election. This is the election. It has the ballot programmed on it. It reads the ballot in the correct precinct. And this information then, these cards, will create the tabulator table with the totals at the end of the night. Very definite ways polling places are closed. There are definite things that have to happen with these. These have to be under seal in approved bags, approved containers. Our board of canvass approves these, that's what that tag is. Then this election information comes down to my office upstairs along with clerk's envelopes, printed tabulator tapes, poll books, everything from that election, all under special seal. All of it is unofficial until our board of canvass, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, open it and review it and pour over it. And they're very, very particular, and I'm pleased with that. They look at everything. If they have a question, they call the clerks in, they call the workers in. Many times we retabulate with this data the election. And then we can understand that those original election night results are what we need to look at and what they need to certify. I say we because I'm the clerk of the Board of Canvas. So the decentralized manner of our elections, I manage the programming. It goes out to the clerks. They manage their accuracy testing. Clerks hire election inspectors. Those people are citizens like you and me who go through training that I provide from the law, from the Bureau of Elections, to know how to conduct that election. Then we vote. I vote in person perhaps, or I perhaps vote AB, absent voter. The election workers, not me, not my staff, not the elected clerk in the township, the election workers then manage that election. Voters in person feed their own ballot. Election workers who are balanced with representation from both political parties do the absent voter ballot to make sure that every process is matched, everything is balanced, and so on. The absent voter workers, the inspectors, are the ones that are in charge with duplicating ballots. Why do we have to duplicate a ballot? If I'm voting in person and I've done something to my ballot that's incorrect, such as overvoting, damaged ballot, whatever, this machine will tell me, and I immediately have an opportunity to get a new fresh ballot, go into the privacy booth and do that, so that my vote counts. If you're an AV voter, you're not there. So then we have a Republican and a Democrat trained election inspector to try to assist, I'm an AV voter, my ballot to make sure any part of my vote can be captured, maybe the ballot's damaged, whatever. Military voters, all of those have to be duplicated because they come back on a piece of paper and that won't feed through here. It has to be a certain weight to feed through the tabulator because we want every ballot to be processed through here. So we don't have any concern. So the NK has our totals, again, unofficial till our Board of Canvas review those and certified at the local level, and it goes to the state. Then the state Board of Canvassers go through the same process, certify us, all 83 counties, the timetables click in by law, and if there has to be a question about an election result, so on. It's all in election law and other law. All of this information can be accessed on the website, State of Michigan Secretary of State website. If you're interested in knowing how an election inspector is trained, the manual's out there. If you're interested in knowing how a recount's conducted, the information's out there. There are a lot of laws that direct how we do things. So that's a synopsis on what we do. I can't take you through all the details. We'll be here till tomorrow, but I'm happy to talk to any of you about it if you have a question. So what I'm hearing now is great concern about this, that there's something in there that's breachable, that there's something in there that has destroyed our election results. That doesn't know anything unless it has these in there. That's a piece of equipment designed to read the ballot, the program ballot, and to count the ballot appropriately. So I am seriously concerned where this distrust has come in. I know in other areas, larger populations, there's questions about the processes. Questions are good. I'm not saying questions are very good, but to my knowledge, this is a piece of equipment that works with special programming. We reuse these. So when election has been certified at all levels, and when election security is lifted by the state of Michigan, we can reuse these items. Example is, in November 2020, every precinct, every jurisdiction had an election. It was a presidential cycle. So now here we are heading into August. We have an election in August in one township, in Hadley Township. So Hadley Township's media has been reprogrammed to read the ballot for August in Hadley, which is a proposal. And we're gonna go through the same process just as if it was a countywide election. Security is maintained, Their accuracy test has already been conducted. Accuracy tests are published. We welcome every one of you to come see how those accuracy tests are conducted in the precincts. Because to me, education is the key to success here, to understand the processes. So the tabulator, again, is this computer. What is this huge box? This box is locked. That's what holds our ballots. Up to 3,000 ballots will fit in there. That's locked during the day. So on election day, our voted ballots are secure. Do I think it'd be a problem with Lapeer County? Probably not. Doesn't matter. We follow the law. That's the way it's conducted. So we have no question about what's going on with our election in Lapeer County. So I've heard all of the discourse and all of the concerns. I, above all, want our election to be right here. I want election integrity. I've heard the term forensic audit. I have advisors at the Bureau of Election who are civil servants. They work through different Secretary of State. So they're there no matter who's the Secretary of State. So I said to one of them a couple weeks ago, what is a forensic audit? She said, I don't know. I'm not really sure what it is. And I Googled it, and I got a law journal at .org about a forensic audit. So I could try to understand that. There have been audits of the November election. There is a report that came out in April of 2021. It's a 41-page report that shares the audit information throughout the state. So here in Lapeer County, you know, we're a smaller county than, say, Genesee. So in our county, the post-election audit had us visit, and us being myself, my chief deputy, 4 precincts. That first level post-election audit required that we went to the clerk's office. They unlocked their ballots. These voted ballots are guarded. They're kept under security at the local level. So they unlock the ballots. We have to count every ballot. We have to make sure that the number of ballots that's stored there matches their report, matches their poll book, matches the tabulator tape. Then we had to go back into those ballots in their hall and count races. In all 4 of ours in Lapeer County, everything matched perfectly, which I was very happy about because it already was bubbling up with all of these concerns. What am I missing here? But our election audits were fine. That was reassuring to me because I'm not a computer expert. I trust that there are those experts that are doing all of this to make sure that everything's okay. So the audit report I just talked about, 41 pages long, got a tab notebook here. If you want a copy of it, happy to forward it to you via email. Just give me all your information and I'll ship it out to you. It's on the state's website, but I have found it sometimes hard to find things there, but so I'm happy to share it with you. We also had a second level audit called a risk limiting audit. That's a little more mathematical, if you will, with algorithms, and we were directed to pull, say we had a ballot box with 2,000 ballots in it. This direction to me was to pull the 11th ballot, the 27th ballot, and the whatever. That I did that. We did that, not me, but the local clerks, and reported that all into the state. So that's part of the second level of audit. So I believe the state's report is correct in telling me what they found elsewhere. I know what I found in Lapeer County because I did it. It was kind of a long process, but that's okay. Because if there are questions, we need to answer the questions. So I basically wanted to, I'm passionate, I'm gonna take too much time, but just to try to explain my part of it and what I know about. And again, I am above all want to know if there's any issue, what that issue is. So I made a copy of what I found in the law dictionary on forensic audits, just so that it's a few pages. So I made those copies for everybody. Okay. And if you folks haven't, if I've confused anything or haven't covered something, please tell me because I'm happy to do my best.
No, you've done a good job.
Great job.
So I'm sure that you've told everybody out in the audience that the Board of Commissioners knows nothing about it.
I would never say that in public.
That's a fact.
Well,
So,
you don't work elections.
No, I understand that too. So,
Thank you.
We do want to applaud you and all the canvassers that worked on your, and I was a canvasser once, so I understand the tediousness that she's talking about. They do what she's saying they do. That's other subject to that, but that's exactly what she does. And so I praise them all. We've done a great job here. I feel comfortable with, but there's still other issues that they're questioning, and I have to.
Thank you.
Lisa, I just have one more question.
Okay.
And I'm sure I know the answer to this, so, and that machine, the only way that it is connected to anything is a plug into the wall.
For electricity,
Yes.
yes, yes.
There is no internet, there is no phone line, there's no anything going to that machine other than the plug in the wall.
You are correct. Thank you for bringing it up, because additionally, in Lapeer County, we do not have modems to transmit results after the polls are closed. We don't even have those. We do it the old-fashioned way. Clerks work, receiving boards work. Sometime the next morning in the wee hours, we see them in hand, with the results in hand. So we don't use even modems here.
But one of the questions on that though was how do you get that information to the state to count your vote? How did that information get to the state? You have it on that flash drive out of that machine verifying.
Okay,
How does the state get it? Because they gotta give us a tally. Somehow they got it, right?
that's an excellent question. So we'll go back to November presidential election, right? The state on election night or the next morning are waiting for every county to deliver unofficial results. Okay, so we have the ability with the county's election computer, which is not hooked to the internet, can't be anywhere near the internet, that reads these preliminary results into that computer so that we can develop the totals. Because now with our 80 county boards and so on, we have like 46 of these cards. And so we get the preliminary totals, and before I leave the night or the morning after of the election, I have to look at the report and I have to input those numbers into the state site. So for a presidential election, the state's interested in the top of the ticket down to the state offices. Then, after the canvass is finished, they're interested in all precinct results. So then I send them the paper reports. And that's all under certain guidelines of timetables. So yeah, they ultimately will have our entire story, but on election night, they want the top of the ticket being presidential all the way down to the state offices. So that has to happen, and then they call me if we're late. I can't leave till all the precincts are in. I can't control what's going on up there. Sometimes I make house calls, but we'll see what's up. Not that I can get involved in it, but I just want to make sure they're okay out there, because we're a pretty broad space of area, all the way up Burlington Ridge, all the way down. Anyway, if it's like the middle of the night, like 2:00 in the morning, the state starts calling, how are you? How many precincts you have to come in? So I can't leave till I give them our preliminary results. And then after the Board of Canvass finishes their work and certify, then I have to again report to the state what's the final total. And over the years, there might be a vote change one or another for maybe a board of, school board, college board, or somewhere in there. So the numbers might change by 1 or 2, but at that point, after the Board of Canvass does their work, those are our final returns. And then, well, like I said, our precinct returns, those go there by paper. But that's great. Those are great questions. Thanks.
Thank you, Teresa.
Thanks.
Now to hear from the public. We'll do this 3 minutes at a time. Please state your name when you come up here.
My name is Harry Akers, and I live in Dryden. I am a member of the Board of Canvassers, and I just wanted to say that everything Teresa just said is absolutely accurate from my perspective on the board. And a lot of counties don't do what Lapeer County evidently does. I've heard of, I know I'm just supposed to talk about Lapeer, so I'll back up. Lapeer County, if we are off by one count of one ballot, we will call the township clerk in with her people, and they will recount all of their ballots to make sure, to find out where that ballot was. We had a case last time where 2 ballots stuck together. The ink had dried and kind of welded them together. They had to recount 3 times before they found that and realized and peeled it apart. And we had 2 ballots go through the machine at the same time. So we were off because each ballot has a number on it. So we go to that degree. There is not a problem in Lapeer County. And now I am concerned about other counties, don't get me wrong, but I'm not allowed to talk about them. But when Detroit's off by 600.
Well, we understand what
All right.
Detroit does. Who else would like to address this board on this issue?
My name's Anna Pierce, I'm from Hacking Township. I think that county clerks can speak for their county citizens in demanding the forensic audit that many Michiganders want. And 7,500 filed, many of those were Lapeer County citizens, file affidavits to the representatives to begin to facilitate. Our Michigan Constitution lists the carrying out of an audit of the results of a statewide election as a right of the people. There should be no argument about this. Right now, most of our elected officials in the Michigan Senate and House are denying the right to the people and not upholding their oath. Will any of our elected officials stand for the citizens concerned about the past election? And too few have. Our county clerk ignored the concerns when the decision was made to go ahead with the preventative maintenance, as in other years, because that has been done, but 2020 was not another year. That action, I believe, was another example of an elected official ignoring the will of the people, just as 7,500 affidavits were ignored in Lansing thus far. We, the people, have had our experts, and experts on both sides of the controversy condemn the voting machines and find actual and potential manipulation. The potential in Lapeer is present. I don't think it happened either, but the potential is there. But even if the machines in Lapeer were not manipulated, citizens in every county and clerks can choose not to use those machines or use them differently, thereby standing with those in other Michigan counties where fraud took place. Our representative and speaker apparently won't give the ongoing investigations a time of day. I asked our own county clerk to hear the evidence of fraud. If there are fraudulent ballots in Lapeer, people's votes, some of them will become meaningless. We don't think much of that happened, but if another county has rampant fraud, that will make my vote in Lapeer County meaningless. And that's what I had to say.
Thank you. Who's next? Who would like to speak to the board?
My name is Carol Wynn, and mine are mostly statements or just quick questions. Were all the signatures verified and procedures followed by the law on these mail-in ballots? Is the software on the equipment all certified for an election, just for the election? Why would our legislature, and again, this is still about Lapeer County, introduce legislation to change a light bulb unless the light bulb was broken? My understanding is that the removal of the battery is not on the list of maintenance items when these machines were maintained. I do not trust the existing equipment. I want the ballot drop-off boxes removed. The one in Marathon Township was damaged by someone. They taped it, duct taped it, put some tarp on it. It's been sitting there the whole time. It looks terrible. I do not believe we need drop-off boxes. If you're going to have a mail-in ballot, either mail it in or drop it off. We're open 3 days a week, and then they're open all day. I think there's a lot of time for people to bring their ballots in, to drop them off. And then the last thing is, I know someone who had a ballot rejected 3 times. And then, shoots it right back out, and then finally took it the 4th time. I don't know if an election worker should allow that. I think they should probably have made that person, and I know of more than one, but made that person fill out a ballot. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to speak to the board this morning about this issue?
My name is Dave Clafer, Morgan Township. Regarding the battery on the machine, this is directed, I guess, to you. In that maintenance, who does that? A company comes in, or some of your staff do it, or?
No, we don't do that. You can contact the clerk after this meeting.
Okay.
And have her answer that question, but can't do it now. There's too many other people that would like to speak.
Okay, I understand the, pretty much everything that's going on here. I feel confident in Lapeer County that I can take my ballot or mail it in. Normally I just take it over and drop it or take it right inside the office. And I feel confident here in Lapeer County that where this happens is good. Everything's working great. But again, like she said, the ballot boxes are an issue. The boxes they have sitting outside, why can't they just have like a slot in the door where it goes in? I think some of the townships may have that, where they can just slip them right in. It's not sitting out there in the public where they can come in there at night and knock the boxes over, stuff like this. But maybe a little bit more integrity in the handling of the absentee ballots or the mail-in ballots or the drop-off ballots. That's about it.
Thanks, Dave. Who's next? Who would like to speak to us this morning on this issue?
Hello, my name is Erica Henry, and I'm from Lapeer County in Marathon Township. And I just want to say I appreciate everything you guys have done, pursuing everything you have in Lapeer County about elections, and also Teresa. And I've spoken with Teresa for an hour or so, and she explained all the different processes to me. And also I've spoken to several different clerks in our county to really understand the process. And everything that I have to say right now is really not concerning the process at all, because the process works, it's been verified. The statements that I have to say today primarily revolve around the integral part of every citizen needing to know that their vote actually counts, okay? So what really happens across the state and across the world and even across America has to do with Lapeer County. And I have in front of me several statements that I took directly off of the Dominion contract that Dominion themselves said. This is not something that I said. This is not something that I think. These are facts that Dominion has put inside of their contract when they actually are working together with different cities, okay? I want to clarify this already too, that this is not the contract that Lapeer County has with Dominion. I did get through FOIA response from Teresa several of the documents from Dominion and what we use, and I can verify that the exact equipment that we're using in Lapeer County also applies to this contract that I'm referring to, as it's the Dominion Democracy Suite 5.5, that ImageCast precinct. We use ImageCast X, and it says here that on the state website that those machines were implemented in November, but I'm not sure. I may check on that later with Teresa. But once again, this is quoted directly from the Dominion contract. Quote, allows for use of the system's proportional voting features as per the specifications, should the requirement for a preferential election arise. Ensure any web interfaces that are part of the solution should be fully responsive and hosted on the city's web infrastructure that is scalable in order to handle fluctuations in web traffic. That's on page 29. The system can be configured to remotely transmit results via a wireless carrier network or wired analog landline modem to a SFTP server at Election Central after the polls are closed. System uses an integrated internal secure GSM modem We do not use external devices plugged into our voting machines to transmit election results. In other words, pertaining to your question, there could be one plug-in for a tabulator device, but there could actually be an internal mechanism that transports information. And this actually could go beyond the clerk's knowledge. I want to make sure that I'm not being in an accusatory manner whatsoever towards any clerk, especially Teresa Spencer or any clerk in Lapeer County that has done a sufficient job researching this. This is potentially beyond their knowledge. Therefore, a voter like me knowing this has to ask the question, do they know everything that they know? Or is the accountability for Dominion given by election source and the accountability for election source given by Dominion? And is the SOS taking away the accountability of the Board of Commissioners that actually issued the vote to buy in the system? And who are we trusting? The question is for the voter right now is we're having to go through all these crazy audits afterwards to guarantee it, which we've done a sufficient job to prove that we've done a good job here in Lapeer County. We've gone above and beyond to make sure our clerks deliver those tabulator tapes. However, we can't wait until after everything's canvassed over, everything's checked to do these audits. We have to know as voters going forward. And I'm telling you that the vote will change in the future considerably because there are people in Lapeer County that do not have the sustained measure of confidence because of what we know that the tabulator is potentially capable of hiding and covering that most clerks might not know. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to address this board this morning on this issue?
Good morning. Thank you, Teresa. That was a great presentation. My name's Carol Brown, Mayfield Township. When she spoke, it brought up a couple questions for me, and you're right, where everybody knows we think Lapeer County is accurate. Our concerns are outside of this county. But she brought up a question about those media cards, and they can be reprogrammed and reused. So my question is, there's a security time you said in between there. I'd like to know how long that is, how many months that is before they're reprogrammed for the next election. And I think somebody already addressed this, the software, Carol might have said it, within the Dominion voting machines, was it certified? I'd like to find that out. And also, the qualified voter file, if that was certified prior to being used. And I guess that's about all I've got. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to address this board at this time on this issue?
My name's Alan Pierce. I'm from Hadley Township, and I was present at the precinct office, county office, or the township office, when the final check was done on the machines that are locked, that are secured for this upcoming election. Okay. The clerk and the assistant clerk were very educational on the process of the machines. And right here, if we were to adjourn the meeting, go to Hadley Township, look at their machine, it does have a seal on it. It is prepared for the next election. Okay, that's all said and done. Now we've already heard, as citizens of this county, that the county elections were as secure as they could be for the past election. However, as evidenced by the manufacturers of the machines, I don't know because I too am not a forensic expert on machines. Is there or is there not a communications device built within these machines? I spent 20 years in the United States Army to protect our freedom of free elections. I stood in Panama as a member of the United States Army to oversee elections that they had down there because they didn't have free elections. Now, do we have to go to that measure in our own country? We're just asking to be heard. We're just asking to have our questions answered. It's not going to be answered by you all, but it would be supported by you all and your voices to the state, to the U.S. government. This is where our founding fathers, right here, in my opinion, built all of our documentation since the conception of the United States. This is where we should be governed from. Not the state, not the federal government. And I strongly urge, if you're not listening to anything else, listen to the people of this county who are not, I for one, am not comfortable that my vote actually counts because of everything else that can happen to counter that vote. The machines definitely need to be looked at. I'm a proponent, just so I might be the lone voice in the wilderness. I want to go back to casting our ballots, having them written, and handing them in at the ballot location. This sending out, and by the way, just so the board knows, and I'm working on this, I received 5 absentee ballots at my home. 2 of them were daughters. One that has moved to Ohio, gotten married, moved to Ohio. One that has moved to South Carolina, got married, and they're still on the voter rolls. I took those cards to my township clerk and said, these 2 daughters live at this location. They're no longer in the state. Can they please be taken off the roll? I was told they can't. Okay? That's another thing I'm fighting in the background. Nothing that you guys can handle, but that's people like me who know that integrity in elections is so important. And everybody's vote should count, and nobody's false vote should discount one of ours. Either way. Thank you.
William Hamilton, Lapeer Township. Just like to point out that I have a few excerpts from the state contract between the state of Michigan and Dominion voting systems. And while our clerks might not be aware that these machines can communicate, it's in the state contract that these machines can be equipped with cellular modems or dial-up modems. So while they might have taken this machine just plugged in the wall at the precinct, we don't know that it's not communicating on a cellular network. Just because it's not plugged into an Ethernet cable or a dial-up cable doesn't mean it's not communicating. They found this in other places. So I don't blame our clerks. They did a great job, especially here in Lapeer. We may not have even had issues here in Lapeer. Great. But when you have distrust on a certain system that we're using, and there's issues with it in other places, that's potential for violating my vote, making my vote not count. And also, She mentioned these little cards that are programmed. I'd like to know who's programming them. Because as somebody who does have an IT background, you can program a computer to do anything, and you can hide it. Unless you know what's in that source code, you don't know what that machine's doing in the background. So I just like to say that as citizens, it's in the state constitution that we have the right to a full forensic audit of these machines. And when I'm saying a forensic audit, that's not taking some random ballots out and recounting them. That's hooking this machine up to another computer and looking at what's inside of this machine. What was it doing? Who was it communicating with? IP addresses, any other servers, any other computers? What is its software doing? What's on the software? They found another place where these machines have had software on them, Microsoft SQL Server Management Studio. That's a database manipulation tool that I use in my own work, my own job. I use that same tool. You can manipulate the database where this election data is being stored. So I would implore you to allow a forensic firm to come in and at least examine the machines and know whether or not ours here were manipulated or not, for everybody's peace of mind. Our election is supposed to be our most sacred thing, and there's a lot of people, including myself, that don't feel that it's secure. And this is not the fault of our clerk. Don't want to blame our clerks. Our clerks are great. They don't know what these machines could be doing. So I just wanted to say that. Thank you.
Would anybody else like to address this issue this morning?
My name is Truman Mass, and I'm from Lincoln City Township. As a citizen of Lapeer County, I am requesting our clerk to consider the possibility that software and instruments used in our county have the ability to be compromised. Even though Lapeer County has hardworking, knowledgeable, and credible clerks, it is possible for outside programming to take place that would construe the results of the election without the knowledge of the clerks. It is not the clerks that are being accused of possible mismanagement, but rather the instruments. Yet it is the clerk's responsibility to ensure that the election results are accurate. We are asking the clerks to hold this responsibility in the highest regard and use their authority to go through the extra extent to hand evaluate each ballot to make sure each vote tally is in congruence with the accounts the tabulators produced. How can a vote tally be construed? While each clerk checks the ballot, poll book, and registration and ensures that each tabulator accounts for every ballot that is turned in for the election, the clerks do not hand count every vote tally from the presidential vote all the way down the ballot. Because it is evident that external sources may compromise the vote tally, we are requesting that each township pursue a complete hand tally of the presidential and down ballot counts, ensuring that the chain of custody protocols are followed. The truth is found in the paper ballots. If each paper ballot in every one of Lapeer County's township is given the consideration of a second evaluation, then the truth will be secured. And many that are now apprehensive concerning the election process will be pacified. At this point, our republic, that is what the people need and demand for sustained security and confidence in the system we call America. Thank you.
Thank you. Who else would like to address this ordinance and on this issue? Are we all done? I'd like to thank all of you for participating this morning. We listen. It's your voice, and everybody should have their own voice in this county or any place else in this country. So, saying that, we'll move on to the next issue, which is Administration Finance Board of Commissioners. Request to approve new departmental practices regarding imaging files beginning August the 1st.
Well, I hate to follow that with normal administrative business, but here we are.
We have to do the business of the county.
We are doing the business of the county, so we will move forward with that. We have, within our records, a complete register of deeds, former register of deeds building that is full to the brim with files that they themselves need to be moved. The building itself is in a position where files are being destroyed because of contaminants, bacteria that's actually in the building. That does need to be addressed. In order to salvage these files and to move them into a digital presence, we're requesting that beginning August 1st, give each department enough time to react, but beginning August 1st, we no longer store files in that location in order not to compromise any more files. Additionally, we'd like to move forward with creating an RFP that would bring in a vendor that would allow us to scan and perform an imaging service for these files. What that would allow to do from the courts, the prosecuting attorney's office, to the clerk's office, anywhere else around the county department, to immediately bring up files necessary for their daily work and just administrative tasks. So with that, we're asking that we move to August 1st of this year, that we no longer, any department, bring files to the former Register of Deeds building, and that they begin per department scanning and imaging their own files, as the RFP will indicate August 1st is the date that we will, it's contracted from 30, 40 years back up into August 1st, 2021. And so if that's the contract that we sign, I'm asking that all departments from August 1 and into the future perform their own scanning and imaging. We need to at least have a date on the calendar to perform that.
Okay, so we've talked about this before, and the concept absolutely makes sense that we still got the tide coming in, and we're having an impossible. We tried the pilot program, and we discovered with the pilot program that we can't even keep up with what we got, like you say, without the tide. So stemming the tide makes perfect sense. A couple questions in that regard, though. First of all, has the actual function of departments doing what we're telling them they have to do now to stem this tide, has that conversation taken place with all our department heads? Do we know that they all have the capability to do that? Because of course we've got such varied departments across the country,
and
large and small.
Yes.
Animal control can say, how are we going to be able to do this? A larger department is going to be able to say, you need to hire our own person just to be able to do that, and we'll get personnel requests. So just need to kind of have a handle before we put our rubber stamp on that, how the rubber's going to meet the road.
So with that, it's going to vary per department and to the degree of which that they need to scan and image these documents. For example, Mr. Krill, I think he may have stepped out already, but in Veterans Affairs, he has 3 file cabinets full of DD-214s, discharge papers, and veteran files that he needs to be brought up to speed. And we understand that there will be new veterans in the future that come to the table. And so is Mr. Curley prepared to be able to scan an image? Do I know that he has to scan? No, he does not. I know that because that's why we're doing that, to catch them up. So phase 2, I'm glad you brought it up. Phase 2 is to ensure then that all of our departments have the proper equipment and imaging software to do these things. So it's not as if we're requesting that on August 1, every department's going to automatically start scanning imaging. We need
that's my question, because the way the proposal is written is that's what we're asking.
Well, yes, but we need to draw a line in the sand somewhere,
right,
to say this is the date. And so there will be a future date where all departments are provided with the proper equipment and the software and a training schedule will say this is how you use it, this is what you do. For the most part, the departments who are actively using scanning and imaging, they're catching up with their lost dockets. And they've actually requested, hey, I would like really to know where can I say this is what I can anticipate the company coming in to do, and then what I can do in the future.
So the August 1st date is really more for kind of being able to have a baseline for our RFPs. But if you are Pete over at Veterans Affairs, and he's not going to actually be able to get departmental scanning effective till June of '22. He just needs to know that when he does that, he's got a backup. He's got to do from August 1st of '21 on to get caught up. So he'll have his own little bit. Every department will have their own. If they don't start on August 1st, they're each going to have their own little bit of catch up to do. But the August 1st one is more just for that line in the sand for RFP.
It's the RFP line in the sand. It also adds that necessary pressure from per department to say, we need to move forward, act proactively and get this in order because we're going to be responsible
We
for it.
don't put it.
Oh, I
If we
get
don't
no,
put
like,
August the first on there, they'll never stop.
like I
throwing
said,
stuff in
I
there.
get the line in the sand completely. I just want to know what kind of conversations we've had with the department heads. Or are we going to get flooded with, whoa, that's the first I heard of that. What do you guys think? Is that something you talked about this department?
I am sure that is going to come. I am sure that's going to come. But no, actually, the first couple months on the job, going around departments and taking audit, who does what in what department, knowing that some are more active than others, some are obsolete. So for some, it's like, yeah, business as usual. Yep, we saw this one coming. And on the other hand, it's like, whoa, I don't know how to do this and what to do. We'll address all those accordingly. But as far as a sit down department head, this is the plan August 1st. No, we're not. We don't have that plan in place to say when you're going to get your training, when you're going to get your modules. This is for the RFP. This is to get the contract going in that direction so I can get the RFP written.
Well, however we communicate this to the department heads, though, they're going to need to understand, like I say, only because we're already mid-July. So that's literally like telling somebody, by the time we get the memo together, hey, start next week, you got to do this all yourself.
I think they've been told this over about 5 years, that they need to stop putting those files over there and start doing imaging.
What I'm confused about is that we did have one department that was doing a very good job at it. We didn't have everybody, we didn't ask for any extra help, we did it. So I was under the impression that this kind of started, so I was confused when I heard this. So I agree with August 1st. My question is, those who don't have it, he said 2022, how long does it take them to get prepared to be in that position?
That's phase two. We will have another purchasing RFA coming down the line because we will need to ensure that each department has the right equipment. This needs to get handled so I can get the RFP and contracts written up.
It needs to get started.
And for the contract, they require a date to say, what are we bidding? From when to when? And without that end date, it's just an open contract. And I refuse to get into an open contract with a vendor who just can go on and on and on forever.
Jackie, do you have any input on this?
It doesn't take very long. It's not going to be 22 before everybody's up and ready to image.
Right.
Yeah.
We'll see about that.
Yeah, because we've been talking last year, people already doing this.
When we did it up in admin, when did it take 2 weeks?
Right.
We had that. We already had the scanners.
No, but if you're a health department that already right now can't even jumble some of the.
They're
basic
already
responsibilities.
filing. I mean, we have that in finance. I understand that.
Yes.
But if you're already filing the document, you just run it through a scanner.
Well, I remember the last time the pilot program was presented to us as being that simplistic.
Yeah.
Mark my words, you're gonna
I
have
get
a couple that will
I
be
get
2022.
yes.
Well,
Brendan?
so I have a couple of questions. I get that we need a stop date. That makes sense, sure. What's the opposition of saying stop date 2021, end of 2021? The reason I ask is, so if we set the stop date of August 1st, we're gonna have a backup. Some, I understand, do not have very good scanners. Some don't have scanners at all.
Correct.
Here's what I foresee. Okay, let's jump a year in the future. We're here. Everyone now has scanners. We have a department head. Department head says, we've been backed up since August, and it's now August 2021, and we have a year worth of files. We can do it. It's not a problem. But we're going to need someone else to come onto the staff to help us because we've been doing our regular job and won't have enough people to do our regular job plus scan in these hundreds of documents from a year ago. So I just want someone part-time maybe a full-time person, and then this becomes something where we have an increased cost of $60,000 a year, and then, how part-time positions become full-time or full-time positions don't, evaporate over time. They get stuck in there. Well, yeah, they've been great. So that we actually been having them do other things. So we can't have them lost now, right? That's what I see. So what's the opposition to saying this is going to be the end of the year? And then throughout the next several months, we implement a system where everyone has a scanner so that everyone can begin the scanning process. And they won't have this big backlog. So then starting 2022, beginning of 2022, everyone can begin to scan. They won't have the excuse of, oh, well, I have to backlog hundreds of documents over the last several months or year. So what's the opposition of potentially doing that? Just coming at it from a different perspective, and then there's no excuse for the departments to say, well, we didn't get it done, and there's also no excuse afterwards because, hey, we gave you the scanners, we trained you on it, yet let's say we get in the scanners, you had 3, if not 4 months to get used to it, you know the system, you know the expectations. There's no need. So is that reasonable?
There's really no opposition from a department head to move it from August 1 till end of the year. I wouldn't find any opposition there. In terms of the RFP, I need to quote a date for the vendors to approve. That's how they're going to build their budget. That's how we're going to decide what money we're going to spend on it. So the line can move. There's no doubt about that. I'm just a believer in if we're going to do this efficiently and hold people accountable to it, they have to have a deadline.
Absolutely.
Because if they don't have a deadline, it'll never get done.
So can I make the proposal? I'm going to make the proposal that we do December 31st, 2021.
Well, that was kind of the direction my conversation was going in, but then Rick kind of asked the question right in midstream. I just wanted to say,
Why would we move it?
well, so I'm gonna answer that question.
I'm talking to him, he's the one that's making the
7
proposal.
months. This was supposed to have been done the first part of the year.
Right.
We had this easy peasy program that was gonna go great, and we were gonna have this all done. And that was, didn't work out to be true.
Yeah, and
So at some point, let's draw the line, let's get this done. If in a year from now, one of the other departments doesn't have the staff or doesn't have the means to do this, what are they gonna do? They're gonna come here and they're gonna say, oh, we need more people, we need this, we need that. Or they're gonna hire the company and have it done.
And that's going to be an increased cost that we can avoid by just making it at the end of the year. I mean, just how
That's
many.
been the argument for 20 years. That's why we got a building full
That's
of
why-
junk sitting over
Exactly,
there.
but let's take what happened with the pilot program. We were told with the pilot program, oh, we can get it all done, we can get it all done, just a couple part-time people, it won't cost us anything. We all know what that was. It was a load of manure, right? So that's gonna happen again.
Voted for it.
Well, we were misled, in all honesty. I'm just gonna say, we were misled on what potentially could have happened there, but regardless, we need to give reasonable expectations to these department heads and say, reasonably speaking, you have until the end of the year to get this stuff done. If you don't do it at the end of the year, we're not gonna fix your problem.
Well, and that's why I want to speak, I want to just finish the discussion that I started. That's why I said, I understand the line in the sand, and it sounds like from our communication here, we all understand the line in the sand. So now it's just basically what functional line in the sand works best. First of all, what we were presented with, I don't want to say we were misled, what we were presented with was a pilot. Pilot means maybe it's going to work, maybe it's not. We found out that it works, but it's not even going to come close to catching up and not at the cost that were originally presented. Number two, that wasn't department's faults, because what was presented to us was it was going to be at basically a county level, and then that person was going to move to department. So you can't blame department heads for why didn't this get done. They'd be saying, well, what was that person that you guys approved in that pilot project going to make it to my department? So again, no fault of departments. So now just putting on department head cap for a minute. We're going to be going into budgets very shortly. One of the things that Administration 101 is you don't ask somebody to do something, or especially you don't give them the demand to do it with the responsibility unless you have the tools to do it. I'm not going to tell you to do a job without giving you the tools to do the job. So why would I tell a department head come August 1st, you have to do this, if they don't have a scanner or they don't have time to prepare to do that responsibility? With budget time coming, if we drew that line in the sand at the end of the calendar year, you've got a date that you can move forward with the RFPs, and now department heads can use the appropriate process that's in place, which is budget time, to be able to come to us and say, hey, one of the things I requested was this scanning equipment or this part-time person due to the size of my department, I'm going to be able to need to have it. And each one of them could have that budgetary discussion with you in the budgetary review process and with us during the process to see whether or not their requests are legitimate or not. Some might need equipment, some might be able to share equipment, some might need personnel, some might not need personnel. And having that date pushed back just a little bit, not pushing off an ultimate line in the sand. The line in the sand has to be there. Just pushing off a realistic line in the sand, so we don't send the wrong message to our department heads that we're asking them to do a job that they don't have the equipment to do. And they will get freaked out if they see a memo and you're saying starting this date. So I agree. Push the date back just a little. You have your line in the sand, and let's give people a chance to prepare a little bit for it. That'd be mine.
My concern is, I think that it was probably 10 or 12 years ago. We had an imaging company come in, and they give us a figure of $79,000 to do this, right? Well, that was too much money. And we didn't do it. And the files keep growing and growing and growing over there. Now an imaging company comes in and says, this is gonna cost the county $250,000. I wouldn't push this off too much.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with the line in the
I
sand.
mean, I'm telling you, because if you don't put a line in the sand, every one of these departments are gonna come back and they're gonna tell the board of commissioners, they're gonna tell Quentin, look, we need more people to do this for us. We can't do this on our own.
I agree.
They have the ability to take those files and throw them in that building. If they have the ability to throw those files in that building, they have the ability to scan them. All you gotta do is take a file when it comes through, and scan it at the same time.
100% agree, but I said some departments don't have
Which
scanners.
ones?
I want to know which one, there's some that exist. Is that-
I don't know if veterans have one. Do you have one, Dave?
It's just a cheap little, I can do it one page.
Yeah, that's what we have.
Exactly.
That's
I
what we
know
have.
some are also are not adequate for current
Take in
technology.
control, they probably don't have huge files.
Right.
They don't generate huge files. Do they need, whatever, $10,000 scanner to scan what they do? Probably not.
No.
Okay, somebody who, like the courts or whatever, that have, huge documents, they have this equipment. And they're the ones that are creating the huge, amount of files. I mean.
And with that point, correct me if I'm wrong though, but the courts are still gonna have, they have like a different public records retention obligation. So they're still, I understand, having to go into that building to get files. So they're still gonna have some paper records, my understanding. I don't know if you've had a conversation with the court administrator's office, but you probably need to just to find out.
I have, so dating back, I mean, we'll keep records in full and file of requests for action or considered an ROA. And the ROA is what that person needs doing research because it outlines in some offenses, the act, fines, fees, penalties, whatever it is. It's basically on a sheet of paper. Now the accompanying files can be this thick, right? But for the records and what we have per statute is the ROA, 1 page. Currently, right now, at the rate of one person doing the job of scanning ROA is 500 files per day. 500. It's at a rate right now of $4.52, basically per box, per 500 that she can do. Okay, so the current company that everybody's coming back is 3 cents a page. So you take the 10,000s and 10,000s and hundreds of thousands of documents, it's going to add up very, very quickly. If we don't draw a line in the sand, I hear exactly what you're saying operationally, pick a line. And what I'm hearing you say is just move it out a little bit so you can ensure that you get equipment. We probably still, even if we did December 31st, chances are that to provide the training, the equipment, the scanning, everything else that's going to be necessary, we're going to run up against December 31st. Okay. So at some point, we've just got to be able to outline to our department heads, this is where the company that we hire is going to stop. And for some of those departments, it's going to be, wow, that's a scary thought because every day I come up with 1,000 new pieces of paper. And in their mind, they're going to think, wow, I don't know how. Those, to the degree and intensity that their work is going to be done, they're going to be the departments that go first, right? Animal control doesn't produce 1,000 documents a day. So if he's closer to December 31st and he's the last one we get to, that's gonna be okay because it's not the clerk's office. It's not the court system. The courts, those who have the highest degree of need have scanners, have the software, are ready to go. They're just now looking at a deadline going, oh, that inevitable line in the sand, somebody drew it.
You gotta start.
And so they're just trying to react to it. Those who need it the most have the equipment they need.
I don't have any
I-
idea how much we have at the health department.
Oh, I understand.
A ton.
To request approval of new departmental practice regarding imaging files beginning August 1st.
I second.
Now we have a motion and support for August the 1st. All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, same sign.
Aye. And it's only
Motion
because,
carries.
it's only the case, just for the record. The only issue we have is just the date. Okay.
Yeah, pass. After 10 to have 12 years, Lenny.
Well, years, I'd give a couple months more just enough to freak out over time. Sheriff?
I think the sheriff is up to date, isn't it?
You up to date?
Okay.
Okay.
I got it. Oh, yeah.
Yes, I got a really good year. Next issue, request to grant permission for T-Mobile to update their FCC FAA carrier status.
I'll move it, it looks like Jeff's good with it.
Support.
I got
I just wanna put that.
Okay, yeah, there we go. Okay, I was like, after that one, I was gonna hold off until somebody asked a question.
So what is this exactly, and are we ever gonna get decent phone service in Lapeer?
Okay, so, we have a tower at 911. We have co-location contracts with carriers and other things on that tower. We heard a couple months ago about the international company for internet service wanted space on our tower, and we approved that. So it's co-location deals. That's what it is. I received an email saying that T-Mobile, cell carrier, is adding new frequencies. And in order to approve those new frequencies with the FCC and FAA, the owner of the tower needs to update the filing. I put a hold on that. I said, doesn't sound like something we've done in the past. I did my research. I don't have any evidence that we did that. I called Jeff because he has the most intimate knowledge about that tower. He says, really, the carrier is just asking you to do something that they need to do themselves. We give permission to the carriers to do that. It sounds like they're trying to get out of a little bit of work. So I followed back up with T-Mobile and said, before I give any green light, I'm going to go to the board. We're going to seek permission to know that you're going to be able to do that. We're giving you permission to do that. However, I'd like to add this. I've asked and requested that the T-Mobile's environmental review team provide us the information about what's the frequency, what is that you're going to be doing with these frequencies, what's the purpose of these frequencies, if it's different from what's already been done in the past. And so T-Mobile, as a carrier, their environmental review team is processing this information. I say all that to say this. We can approve, as it's written today, that they can update on our behalf and wait to give the final approval until they get what we've asked for. But I'd like to move forward with this so we're ready to say yes or no, right? Because if they don't provide it, I say no. I would recommend we say no.
So we should add in there them, based on them providing us that information.
We can add that. I mean, that's it. They need to perform a function of providing the information we requested, but sure.
I have a question. Did they guarantee us that they're not interfering with our agreement with Canada?
I haven't asked that.
On frequencies, you better have that conversation.
Yeah.
Because in order to put that tower up, we had to have an agreement with the Canadian government.
Mm-hmm. No, that's a great question. I hadn't gotten to that detail. So, yeah, barring that a successful submission of the environmental review, I'd like to move forward, give them permission to update it.
So you're saying we're an international board, eh?
Not an international board, but that was quite a process, and Candace Miller isn't around anymore to walk us through that.
Interesting.
I couldn't put tornado sirens up on board because of that, until I got approval with Candace Miller's help.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
that was quite a process we had to go through, and
Some
we did
bread
that.
company in Canada, the same frequencies are using for tornado sirens.
Nabisco,
Yeah, that's what it was.
so there was a,
It was quite a process.
it sure was.
So should we put the addendum on the end of the motion, or should we just table it until we get a response?
That's what I'm trying to think, but what you just got through saying, I think we should probably wait to get a response of what candidate was.
What Quentin was saying was we can approve this now just to get the process going. He's gonna report back to us before,
But, good point. Think about it like the grant approval process.
yes.
We have permission, but you don't need to grant it.
Gotcha.
Right?
With that change, waiting based on future.
I don't even think it needs to be in the motion. I've already got it from your department. You can put, what you're saying is he can add it in there if that'll make you more comfortable, but it's not necessary. Administration's on top of that.
So we all set on the motion.
It's going to be supported.
If it's as is, yes.
Okay. We got a motion and support then to what?
These are draft motion that's on here, because we already got a lecture from the clerk over there about not adding on language.
I understand that, so we have a, what do you want on there, Quentin?
I'd like to say the cell carrier T-Mobile is co-located in that county's 911 tower. T-Mobile needs permission from the tower owner to update the new frequencies filings. Draft motion to grant permission to T-Mobile cell carrier to update their FCCA licensing as consistent with past practice. I'd like to say that's what it is, but we're waiting for that environmental review. As written, clerk.
What I say.
That's what it is.
Just as long as it's right, I don't care. Okay, we have a motion and support. All in favor of the motion, say aye. Both same sign, motion carries. That brings us down to the second public time. Would anybody like to address this board? Second public time. Hearing and seeing no one, I close the second public time. Do we have a reason for any closed session today?
Oh, we did have somebody.
There were several comments that I wanted to make earlier that I didn't make. Am I allowed to make them now? Okay. So I just wanted to say that there was one judge, Ausenheimer, and he was the only judge that gave any permission so far to do any forensic evidence finding. And there was evidence that was found from that. There was actually evidence that there was a breach in the internet or in the security breach. And those were found on November 5th and November 17th. And I know the man, Hal Dorman, one of the Secretary of State's experts that submitted a report, he states in his report that there were absolutely no breaches. But when that forensic analysis took place, there were breaches. So we have to take that into account. So there is also evidence in Michigan that the machines did reject ballots and they were purposefully sent to education. There was, we have a problem with source code right now. Apparently all of our clerks can't get source code. Apparently the Secretary of State does not have source code. And the only people that have source code is Dominion. And so that kind of puts us in a circular motion for where the accountability is for these tabulators. So if source code is basically having an accountability by Dominion and Dominion's giving it source code and the Secretary of State can't get that from election source, we potentially have some sort of problem there. I just wanted to ask or mention one other thing. It appears that in Lapeer County, and I can be corrected on this if I'm wrong, but it appears in Lapeer County that all of our tabulators did not save images. So I might be wrong on that, but it appears that, I know that we're required by law to save all ballot images. So the digital images of the ballots, I haven't been able by FOIA response, been able to get any of those digital images of the actual ballots. So it's assumed that in Lapeer County that we turned off that mechanism in the tabulator to prevent that aspect from being preserved. So I'm not exactly sure on that, but I just wanted to mention if anyone can answer my question on that, I appreciate that.
Is there anybody that would like to, during the second public time, would they like to make a comment or statement about something to this board? During public time, the board is not allowed to respond. So. Anybody else like to address the board during the second public time before I close public time? Close the second public time. Is there any need for closed session, Quentin?
No.
Hearing and seeing none, I'll adjourn this meeting. Meeting's adjourned.